Shabbat Shalom. An excerpt from Psalm 92, which can be found in the Kabbalat Shabbat service for Friday night and also Shabbat morning services. Tov lehodot l'Hashem, Tov lehodot l'Hashem, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon, Tov lehodot l'Hashem, lehagid baboker chastecha, lehagid baboker chastecha, ve'emunatcha baleilot, ve'emunatcha baleilot, Tov lehodot l'Hashem. It is good to give thanks to God, to sing hymns to your name, O Most High, to proclaim your steadfast love at daybreak, your faithfulness each night. In Psalm 92, the Hebrew word lehodot means to say todah, as in todah rabbah. Thank you very much. In other words, to give thanks or to acknowledge or acclaim that we are grateful. Another Hebrew word that shares the same root as the word lehodot and todah is the word odeh. I shall give thanks, which appears in this week's Torah portion, Parashat VaYetze, in Genesis, Bereshit, chapter 29, verse 25. In this verse, after Leah gives birth to her fourth son with Yaakov, Jacob, the biblical matriarch exclaims, Hapa'am odeh et Hashem. This time I will thank God. This time I shall give thanks. And to express her gratitude, Leah names her son Yehuda, Judah, a name that's derived from the same root as the word odeh and the word lehodot in Psalm 92 and the word todah. Leah was the first person in the Torah to explicitly thank God and acknowledge God for the blessing in her life. The very name that Leah gives her son connotes thanksgiving. And the very name that we carry, we, the descendants of Judah, the Jewish people, Jews, Yehudim, our very name reminds us of the need to give thanks. We are the people who are supposed to value and express gratitude. The Thanksgiving holiday that we just celebrated is another example of people being thankful to God. Our American ancestors, the Pilgrims, expressed gratitude for the gift of religious freedom and the bounty of the harvest. Now, of course, it's natural to feel thankful and to express gratitude when things are going well. But at the other end of the spectrum, when you are in the midst of adversity, then what? Well, it's natural to feel grateful after overcoming adversity. In our Jewish tradition, in fact, there is a special blessing that one can say after having recovered from a serious illness or returned safely from a long journey or survived a life-threatening crisis, including childbirth. This ritual, which is done usually after having an aliyah to the Torah, is called benching gomel. And this is the blessing, the bracha. Baruch atah Hashem Eloheinu melech haolam, hagomel lachayavim tovot, shegamalani kol tov. Praised are you, our God, who rules the universe, who shows goodness to us beyond our merits, beyond what we deserve, for bestowing favor upon me. And then the kahal, the congregation, responds, may Hashem, who has been gracious to you, continue to favor you with all that is good. So yes, we feel thankful after surviving a crisis. And we feel thankful when our lives seem full of blessings. But what about being thankful in the middle there, during the bad times? What about expressing thanks to God when we are in the midst of adversity? You may recall the story of Yonah, that we read on the afternoon of Yom Kippur. When Yonah was in the depths of the belly of the big fish, he prayed to God, and it was a prayer of thanksgiving, not a prayer of despair, not a prayer requesting that God help him. And this is quite surprising, coming from this prophet who tried to run away from God's call. Once Yonah realized that he couldn't hide from God, he thanks God in the midst of adversity, in the belly of the fish. From the bowels of that fish, he exclaimed, Va'ani bekol todah ezbach lach. I, with loud thanksgiving, will make an offering to you. Some of you may be familiar with the accounts of Holocaust survivors who somehow managed to find something about which they could feel thankful, even during the Shoah itself. My grandmother, Babi Gina, who was a Holocaust survivor, she told me about people in the ghettos and those in hiding who used to recite the following words from the morning prayer service, even in the midst of suffering from illness, starvation, the murder of their loved ones, and their own near-death experiences. Ashreinu matov chalkenu manaim goralenu. How good is our portion? How pleasant is our lot? Could you imagine? Could you imagine reciting these prayers under such adverse, horrific conditions? In her book, To Begin Again, The Journey Toward Comfort, Strength, and Faith in Difficult Times, Rabbi Naomi Levy shares the following account of a prisoner of war. In his words, I did not know if I would survive. Only one thing was clear to me. I had no control over what would be done to me. The only thing I could choose was how I felt and how I behaved. When there is nothing left to gain, nothing more to lose, when one is face to face with the moment of greatest despair, to speak to God in love and thanks, rather than to curse him and one's fate, is the ultimate choice of any human creature, and perhaps the ultimate expression of one's humanity. In the Talmud in Masechet Nida, Rav Yosef tells the following story. This is Daf Lamed Aleph, Amud Aleph. There were two merchants, two competitors, who were about to set on a trading venture when one of them got a thorn stuck in his foot. So at first, this merchant began to curse God because of this mishap, which delayed his journey. But a while later, he heard that his competitor's ship had sunk into the sea. And at this point, the man began to thank God for sparing his life through that very thorn. I recently heard a contemporary pithy version of this teaching. It goes as follows. I was unhappy because I didn't have shoes until I met someone who didn't have feet. This is how many of us felt right before Thanksgiving 2012, in the wake of Hurricane Sandy. It seemed natural to complain about losing electricity in our homes until we realized that the residents of some communities, such as nearby Union Beach, no longer had any homes. Witnessing the effects of this superstorm on the residents of places like Union Beach, Keensburg, Asbury Park, Keyport, Staten Island made so many of us count our blessings. You know, it's so easy to take for granted certain aspects of our lives until we open our eyes to the plight of others who don't have what we have. Now that 8 years have passed since Hurricane Sandy, I hope that we haven't lost this sense of gratitude and that we don't take our blessings for granted. Ideally, we should not need to witness others suffering in order for us to be grateful for what we have. Imagine for a moment what life would be like if we could massively shift the balance of our conversations from fetching, complaining, however innocuous, to reminding ourselves of the pervasive blessings that we do enjoy, the daily blessings that we totally take for granted and usually fail to notice and acknowledge. Imagine if we stopped to notice and acknowledge all of the gifts that God shares upon us. Everything that God showers upon us could be viewed as a miracle, as it says in the Modim prayer, Al nisecha shebechol yom imanu, on the miracles that are with us every day, these miracles that God bestows upon us each and every day. I'd like to conclude my words of Torah going back to the text from Psalm 92 with which I began my words. Tov lahodot laHashem. This is an English adaptation, a poem prayer that is inspired by Psalm 92 and also by a poem prayer that was written by Rabbi Deborah Cantor. It goes as follows. Tov lahodot laHashem. It is good to give thanks to God, to lift our eyes upward to hillsides still draped in deep browns and maroons of late autumn, a rich, fleeting beauty. Tov lahodot laHashem. It is good to give thanks to God, to inhale the crisp air, to feel warmly welcomed as we venture inside, to sniff the aromas of savory gravies, of soup and turkey, chicken, challah, babka, and perhaps pumpkin pie. Tov lahodot laHashem. It is good to give thanks to God, to be seated with family, in person or virtually by Zoom, to feel the power of unconditional love, to feel grateful for the bonds that keep us close to one another, no matter how far apart we may be. Tov lahodot laHashem. It is good to give thanks to God, to count all of our blessings, to recall cherished loved ones who no longer sit here with us at the table, grateful for memories and the gift of their lives. Tov lahodot laHashem. It is good to give thanks to God for granting us the ability to feel God's presence in our lives and to appreciate and express thanksgiving for all that we have. We feel blessed by the opportunity to be together, whether in person or via Zoom or by the phone. Tov lahodot laHashem. We feel blessed to be able to thank God. And I pray that we can have a Thanksgiving next year that will enable us to be together in person. Let us all look forward to Thanksgiving 2021, 5782, even as we do our best to cherish the moments of 2020, 5781. Tov lehodot laHashem. Tov lehodot laHashem. Ulezamer, ulezamer, leshimcha elyon. Tov lehodot laHashem. Shabbat shalom.